Another John Titor thing comes to mind. I'm reading this article a few days ago, and it's talking about Hawaii, and that 90% roughly of the food and things it needs, the people, is brought in, is shipped in, imported in. 90%, 90% was what this article was saying. Hawaii has to import, not necessarily from the world, even from the rest of the United States. It's got to be basically imported, so to speak, due to this island where it's at. It's got to be shipped. So it's not a very self-sufficient island, is what I'm getting at. Matter of fact, farthest from that you probably could get. And I thought, man, didn't John Titor, old time traveler guy, year 2000, mention something about Hawaii not being a good place when the crap hits the fan, or what have you, to be because of that reason. And I thought, look, let me go find real quick. So someone writes to him, I would hope the location I live in would be spared, the Hawaii Islands. His response to this person was, my parents went to Hawaii on their honeymoon. My dad told me a quick story about going to a fast food store and paying $6 or $7. Again, this is the year 2000. $6 or $7 for a hamburger. I got an image in my head of a huge tanker filled with frozen hamburgers headed into the Pacific. Hawaii is very dependent on the mainland for food, isn't it? That was his answer. Yeah, I'm seeing all these questions again, What exactly happens to the water? Yes, radiation affected the water, but that can always be distilled out. There are biological hazards that cannot. In addition, fresh water is hard to come by without talking to someone with a gun first. Does international transportation still exist? Have you visited other countries? Yes, but the market is much smaller. No, I have not been overseas. The market for international transportation is very small now. Not a whole lot of people moving around or going on vacation or visiting. No, that crap stops. Interesting. I'm just reading a few extra ones just for a little bonus, alright? You have said you will not participate in helping anyone avoid death by probability, yet many things you have said could have caused an individual to do or not to do something that will now result in dying or escaping death. So he answers and says, it would help if you could give me an example. If you are referring to the conflict and war in your future, I'm not sure I'm specific enough to help any individuals avoid anything. Suggesting there is a war coming is a bit different than saying avoid Washington, D.C. at 3:45 a.m. on March 12, 2015. There is no way for you to be sure. There is no future world leader reading this and believing you. His answer, are you sure about that? Besides, I think you can have just as much impact as any future leader. So let me think about that for a second. There is no way for you to be sure. There is no future world leader reading this and believing you. guess you can kind of take that two ways. Is Titor replying by saying, yeah, I know there very well could be someone reading what I'm saying that is a world leader later, and he could, you know, I don't think it matters either way, one way or the other. Let's see if there's anything more interesting real quick. Is remote viewing used to gather military intelligence? He says, I am only aware of it from this world line. I don't know otherwise. Is there a police force as we know it? Have any of your leaders been jailed or impeached? Yes, we have police, but they are organized in smaller groups. Yes, we still have political and religious leaders who find it difficult to obey the law. I would submit to you that the law is only as good as the people's willingness to apply it evenly and swiftly. The people's willingness. Is there a global superpower state? Being a superpower only makes you a target. There is an uneasy balance in the world now that everyone probably has nukes, chems, or biological weapons. We don't just bomb people for the hell of it anymore. Military power is based on the number of autonomous fighting men who are actually willing to fight. Interesting statement there. Does China have a manned space program between 2001 and 2036? His answer? I believe they are pretty close to putting a man in orbit. It shouldn't surprise you if they do that soon. As I said the other day, sometime in either 2003 or 2004, China sent their first man into orbit. Interesting, isn't it? Do you have television in 2036? Information does arrive on video, but cathode ray tubes are out, and crystal or plasma is in. Distribution is over the internet, not broadcast. You can already see, I'm going to stop at this point because I could read this thing all day just to refresh my memory of what all he was asked and his answers. It's still so fascinating to me. You know, whether you believe it or not, man, it's so interesting. His response is like that. I mean, now again, we are talking 2000, the year 2000 when he's talking about this. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, nobody that I knew or that they knew, so my friends or my friends' friends, etc., etc., family, all of it, nobody had an LCD or plasma TV, period, that I know of in the year 2000. We all had what he says cathode ray tubes, which is the old school metal knock on the piece of glass on front, you know, heavy duty glass TV. We're now in 2015, and you will now be hard pressed to find someone with that type of technology still floating around their house, unless you're referring to your 70, 80, 90-year-old grandparents or uncle or what have you. That, in those cases, you still may find that. However, my wife's 95-year-old uncle, which is technically, I think, her mom's uncle, but you know how that goes. But he still has a TV that he's had there for the last, I don't know how long, at least 15 years that I've known my wife, roughly, or 14 years. Because it's been there the whole time, and I've been visiting him since I've known her, going up there to Sarasota with her to see him. Before we had kids, and of course now after we have kids, they love to go up to Uncle Pete's and swim in his pool. And you know, it's amazing to see a guy that old is still alive, that your kids you know, in my wife's case, you know, since she's the one that's related to him, but the kids are old enough to still, you know, see him. He can experience those young kids, you know, way on down the family tree, you know, when he's 95. But he had some computer, you know, I don't know at what point he got a computer. I don't remember. But you know, he's been using it, writing emails back and forth to people that he knows, family. You know, he works on that. You know, he's still not where you would expect anybody nowadays to be. But again, at 95 years old, man, you can't ask for anything better. But he needed to get a screen at some point, and I don't remember what the reasoning was, to tell you the truth, but we were visiting and said, you know, Pete, if you want, I mean, you need this, do you have funds to buy a monitor? Yeah, all right. Let's head over to Best Buy. It's the nearest and only thing out where he was at, you know. So went over to Best Buy, found a decent sized monitor. Again, decent price. And this was a few years ago. And yes, by God, I couldn't seem to find a cathode ray tube, or CRT as they call it, a monitor on the shelves of Best Buy, as you could imagine. So we were stuck with either LCD technology, or I don't even know if they had LED technology, but either way. So for, again, that comment, for him to come out boldly stating that everything's LCD and plasma in the future, period, it's a pretty interesting comment, if I don't mind saying so myself. But it's things like when he said, when someone said, you know, our remote viewers use, he says, I only know about that term, basically, that whole thing, from your world line, not on my world line. I've never even heard of it. Which he did say, world lines, and the one he's on, that he came back to, versus his real one, if you will, were so similar, he felt that none of the major things that he's talking about is not gonna not happen. It's going to happen. But he did say, even so, there's still tiny little subtle differences that prove to him, or whatever, and everyone else, these world lines are actually different. Not different enough to make a damn for what he says is coming. But it still shows you that something like, you know, remote viewing, he doesn't even know about, hasn't even heard about it until he got on into those world line and, you know, learned about it. So I don't know if that's disturbing or reassuring. Because if you look at the timeline of what he said, we should be expecting to see these major issues. Sure, you could say, oh, there's a ton of them that he talked about. Yeah, and you're right, which is the scary part. But the 2008 stuff he talked about, you know, you're going to find out about China in 2008, you know, and again, he was referring to the inner tube and that whole thing. We were talking about tires, get extra tires, get a bicycle, some extra bikes if you can, and extra inner tubes and tires for those bikes, because you're going to need them and you're not going to be able to get them. So A, that implies you're not going to be driving around in your car for some reason or another. B, you're going to be riding a bicycle for some reason or another. Probably the same reason as to why you're not driving your car. Which, who knows exactly what that is right now. But he then went on to say, basically, you know, China manufactures bike tires, right? Okay. That's his hint, and you're going to find out in 2008, was pretty much what he said about China and this whole bike thing. So when I saw that, I read that, I'm thinking, okay, so there's got to be an issue with China in which they're not sending us goods anymore. Just somehow it stops pretty abruptly. They're not happy about something, and it stops. And again, years and years and years and years ago, trying to figure out what it might be, it's hard. It's speculation. Why would China do that? You know, we were one of their number one buyers, and right, but they were one of our number one debt buyers, which they've reversed. Nobody saw that coming. Oh my God. But they did it, and they're no longer buying our debt for damn sure. paper. They don't want it. So who is? The Federal Reserve basically is the only game left in town. So is it the day gonna come when we do devalue our dollar or bonds or however we deal with that issue? China is still left with a considerable amount of debt, even though it's been furiously unloading its debt, United States debt, bonds. But is there enough left to where if we say, oh yeah, we have to create this new dollar, or we're going to split off with the IMF and their SDR with these other countries that agreed with us, and China and Russia and BRICS and all you guys, we're not working with you since you're not working with us, and of course now China's pissed off and says, you know what, fine, instantly cut off America, don't send them a damn thing. And then all of a sudden we have a shortage of things like, or going to be a whole lot of things to be a shortage of at that point, one of them being bike tires. As crazy and stupid as it sounds, who cares about bike tires? We're all driving cars. Who cares about bikes, Jay Snip? But again, if there's an issue that arises where you're not going to be driving that car due to things that happen that are out of your control, pick one of many things you can come up with. You're going to be riding some bicycles. And I can say right off the bat, if we get to that point in society where, whatever the reason being, we're all riding bikes, I'm going to make not even a bold statement here. This is a pretty common statement in my eyes, or a pretty obvious statement. And that is, if we are all riding bikes, very, 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 very few people are driving cars, if any. I'm going to go ahead and say there's probably not a whole lot of people left wherever you live to begin with, due to whatever the hell caused people not to be driving cars all of a sudden. How does one get to where I drive 30 minutes to work every day? Just a 30-minute drive to work. I'm thinking when I was in Tennessee for 6 months, 2013, beginning to about midway through, I'm driving to my job, which was the restaurant I was working at with my boss, his restaurant he started. That was about a half hour, 35 to sometimes 40-minute drive, and every day, both to and from, driving on what I saw major highways, highway such and such, I don't remember the numbers now, but 2 different highways I would get on. I would pass a few, I mean just a tiny handful of cars, both during rush hour traffic, so to speak, on the way there and back. Pass a few cars. How is that even possible, I thought, but again, I live out in the country. That's how it's possible. And I thought, right now, imagine if I had to walk that. If I had to walk that far as opposed to drive. 2 problems with that. Driving 60 miles an hour for 35 to 40 minutes. Change that to walking 3 miles an hour. Because you're not going to be jogging, you're going to be walking. 3 miles an hour, 2 miles an hour, somewhere around there. How long is it going to take you to go that distance that you just went in 35 to 45 minutes in a vehicle? Oh, it is not going to be fun. It's going to take you probably half the day to get where you have to get to. Are you going to walk to work? Your job, everything about it would essentially be in jeopardy, be in big trouble. And here's the second part that I just was thinking of as I was saying that. Same scenario. For some reason, my job at the time, let's just pretend, is available, and I'm going to go there and work because I still need money, and yeah, cars, whatever happened. I'm going to walk to work or ride my bike to work. Riding my bike, save some time. But do you know how hilly Tennessee is in some parts? Do you know how brutal a bike ride would be? You would be walking that bike up hills, and then getting on it to go down the hill in straightaways, and then uphill. Let me walk that sucker up here again. Aside from that, you're passing by other people that do not know you, do not care about you. Notice you have this great, nice bicycle that they don't have. Man, would that make the little trek back here to the pond or wherever I'm going to get fish or water. Man, would that bike be good for me. Do you think some of these people out there in the world would give 2 craps about you when they see that asset bicycle you're riding on. And even if you decide to walk it and not ride the bike, every day, man, the last few days I've been noticing, ever since this problem, we're all struggling. This guy over here is walking every day. He walks this time in the morning, and then in late, in the evening, he's back. Man. I wonder if he's going to get food. I wonder if he's got some kind of source. Who the hell would be walking that far? And if we ain't seen him for that kind of time period, where's he going and what's he doing? Those thoughts are going to be going through so many people's mind. You would be a fool to even attempt to do that in a scenario like that. You ain't going 30 miles, or again, 30, 40 miles, whatever the distance is. And that's about what it was. 35, 40 miles away. You're not walking that daily, going through massive amounts of people living out wherever you live and expecting nobody to mess with you at all. Even why conceal carry. Okay. And the day they figure out, they come towards you and you pull it out and then they back off. Okay, sorry about that. Now they know he's got a gun. Get the rifle out. Next time he walks by, boom, just take him out. We don't have time for this nonsense. How awesome is that concealed carrying now? Or open carrying at that point? Someone's standing there waiting for you to go by and pick you off. It doesn't. That's why when I read all these things, everything that I think I know or expect, which again, it can't be possibly 100% correct, but I think about these things. And when I think about this stuff, it makes me realize just how important it is to have your big supply of food storage and things you need at your house so you don't even have to leave. And when all the chaos, should it occur, happens and the dust kind of settles, so to speak, everyone becomes human again and okay, let's calm down and try to live now instead of fighting for everything against each other, and then maybe you can kind of peek out. Because I got to tell you, it wouldn't take long or even last long in a scenario like that. I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it sure as hell is interesting to see things happening that say, hey, didn't John Titor? Hey, I thought John Titor. And the answer, yes, he did. Oh, year 2000, huh? Interesting. Very interesting. Gotta go. Take care.